we are going to do our final review video, which is part 6, factoring completely. So on this one, we're going to look at problems where we will need to pull out the GCF and then factor further, or factor using difference of squares and then factor using difference of squares again. So those types of things can happen as we are working through. So our first one that we're going to look at is this x to the 6th minus 4x squared. So I look at it, and the first thing that I notice is that there's an x squared in common. So I can start by pulling out that x squared. Remember, to get what goes inside the parentheses, I'm going to divide by x squared. So x to the 6th divided by x squared is x to the 4th minus 4, and the x squareds would cancel. Redistribute to make sure that it works. And then notice what's inside my parentheses here. Those are both perfect squares. So I'm going to come in and take the square root of x to the 4th, which is x squared. Take the square root of 4, which is 2. And then I'm going to use my difference of squares. So x squared plus 2, x squared minus 2. And that is now factored. Typically, when we're asked to factor completely, we mean using integers. So even though this one technically could be factored further using irrational numbers, we're not doing that just yet. I want to point out, when I pull out this GCF, it stays with me because I am using equal signs. So these things need to be equal as I go. If I remultiply all of this stuff in this last one, if I remultiply this, I should come back to this, and I would. Okay, my next example. So this time I have 4 terms. I look, there's no GCF. That's common between all 4. So I'm going to go to my box method. I'm going to place the first and the last. And then the 2 middle ones, it doesn't matter which one goes where. And then I'm going to pull out the GCF. So the first column has a 4 in common and an x in common. Negative x squared and 1 just has 1 in common. Because the negative is because this is negative, this will be negative. Then the first row, 4x cubed and negative x squared, just has x squared in common. Negative 4x and 1 just has 1 in common. And again, because this is negative, this will be negative. There we go. So what I have so far, 4x minus 1, x squared minus 1. And what I notice, that's difference of squares. So taking the square root to find a, taking the square root to find b, and then doing a plus b. Whoops, I don't want a, I want x. A plus b and a minus b. A minus b. All right, one more example to look at here. Our third example. So the first thing I notice when I am looking at this example, there's a whole bunch of 6's. So I can pull out my 6. So that's going to be x squared minus 11x minus 10. And then this trinomial leading coefficient of 1. So that means I can use my little shortcut method. Multiplying my first and last, I want to multiply to negative 10, add to negative 11. So because I'm multiplying to a negative, my signs will be different. And actually, that's not going to factor any further. My larger would need to be the negative. So that doesn't actually factor any further because there's no factors of negative 10 that add to negative 11. So I'm actually done. No further to go. So that is factoring completely. Remember, to make your life easier, pull out the GCF first. Always do that method first, and then look at how many terms, look for any patterns.